now, chosen one. Something has shifted and your body recognized it before your mind could explain it. Anointed one. This is not random, and you did not arrive at this message by accident. This is a divine interruption, heaven drawing your attention to a moment that was already written for you. There are seasons when change happens around you, but there are other seasons when the change begins within you first, and this is one of those moments. You have felt it, the unusual tiredness that doesn't make sense, the sudden sensitivity to environments you once tolerated, the quiet pull towards stillness while everything around you keeps moving. And deep inside, a question has been forming: what is happening to me, chosen one? Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 1 reminds us that there is a season for everything under heaven. But what many do not realize is that before a new season becomes visible, it is first activated within the vessel. Your body is not failing. You are being prepared. There is a divine adjustment taking place, aligning you for something your previous version could not carry. This is not weakness. This is preparation for elevation, for clarity, for a new level of assignment. If this message is meeting you right now, consider subscribing so you do not miss what heaven is unfolding in your life. Stay with me, because what you are experiencing is only the beginning of something far greater. Chosen one. What unsettled you lately was not random weakness, and it was not your body betraying you in secret. It was a sign that your old capacity had reached its limit, and something deeper had already begun. There are seasons when heaven does not announce change with noise. It announces change through disruption inside the vessel. You feel it in your sleep before you understand it in your thoughts. You notice it in your energy before you can explain it in words. You sit in places that once felt normal, and now something inside you withdraws. You wake in the night with a strange alertness, as if your spirit is listening while the rest of the world is unconscious. And because you cannot easily name what is happening, the enemy tries to name it for you. He calls it instability. He calls it burnout. He calls it confusion. But he is lying to you, anointed one. What you are experiencing is not collapse. It is consecration. There is a reason this shift feels personal. Your body is not separate from your calling. The same God who formed your spirit also designed your frame to carry purpose, pressure, and provision in the timing He appointed for your life. That is why, when your next season begins to approach, heaven does not only prepare your circumstances. Heaven prepares you. It prepares your discernment. It prepares your endurance. It prepares the way you carry atmosphere, the way you respond to pressure, the way you recognize peace, and the way you reject what no longer belongs near your assignment. This is why what once entertained you now exhausts you. This is why some rooms feel heavier than they used to. This is why your soul has become less willing to cooperate with what your future cannot sustain. I want you to hear this with clarity, because many of you have been misreading yourselves. You are not becoming too sensitive. You are becoming more accurate. You are not becoming fragile. You are becoming more finely tuned. There is a difference. A dull instrument can sit anywhere and react to nothing. But a tuned instrument can detect what is off-key the moment the atmosphere changes. That is what is happening to you, chosen one. Your life is being tuned for a greater assignment, and tuning always creates tension before it creates harmony. That tension is not proof that something is wrong. It is proof that something is being adjusted with precision. I remember walking through a season where I could not understand why ordinary things suddenly felt costly. Conversations I used to carry with ease began leaving me drained for hours. Environments I had once considered familiar started feeling spiritually loud, even when no one else seemed to notice anything unusual. At first, I resisted it. I thought I had to force myself back into old rhythms just to prove I was still strong. But strength is not always revealed by pushing through. Sometimes strength is revealed by discerning when your spirit has outgrown what your habits are still trying to hold on to. That lesson changed me. I realized my body was responding to spiritual truth long before my mind had the courage to admit it. And that may be exactly where you are right now. You may still be trying to function according to an old pattern, while heaven is already moving you into a new measure of stewardship. Because this is not only about comfort, this is about what you are being prepared to carry. Chosen fortune is not shallow gain. It is divine stewardship. It is provision tied to assignment. It is increase that must rest on a life that knows how to hear clearly, move wisely, and say no to what drains the oil. If heaven intends to place greater responsibility in your hands, then it must first teach your vessel how to reject unnecessary burdens. Some of the tiredness you have felt is not because you are becoming weaker. It is because your life is no longer permitted to waste strength in the wrong places. Listen closely now. The shift in your body is revealing where your future can breathe and where it cannot. That is why your appetite for noise is changing. That is why your tolerance for shallow connection is shrinking. That is why you can no longer scatter your energy across every demand, every expectation, every distraction, every emotional atmosphere that asks for access to you. A boundary is forming inside you, and it did not come from fear, it came from wisdom. Heaven is teaching you that not every open conversation is an open door. Not every familiar place is still an assigned place. Not everything you used to survive in can still support the version of you that is about to rise. There is a hidden mercy in this season that you may not fully appreciate yet. What feels like discomfort is actually separation. What feels like distance is actually refinement. What feels like interruption is often protection. The seed doesn't complain when the shell begins to split, even though splitting is uncomfortable. Somewhere in that buried place, the seed understands that breaking is how growth makes room for itself. And you, anointed one, are in a buried place of holy rearrangement. Roots are forming where no one can applaud you. Capacity is stretching where no one can validate you. Sensitivity is increasing because your next season will require more than effort. It will require precision. That is why this cannot be rushed. Something sacred is being built beneath the surface, and if you misread this season, you may resist the very process that is making you ready. Because what begins as bodily disruption will soon reveal itself as spiritual intelligence. And once that revelation lands, you will start to understand why some things had to fall silent before the next instruction could be heard. Chosen one. There is another reason this season has felt so unusual, and it is because heaven is not merely teaching you how to feel differently, it is teaching you how to carry differently. What is changing inside you is not only your sensitivity to people, places, and patterns. The deeper work is in how your strength is being redistributed. In an earlier season, you may have been able to pour yourself into everything at once. You could answer every message, entertain every demand, sit in every room, tolerate every emotional atmosphere, and still convince yourself that you were functioning well. But when a higher assignment begins approaching your life, the first thing heaven often does is stop the leaking. Energy that once flowed carelessly in every direction begins to withdraw from what no longer serves your future. And because this shift happens internally, before it becomes visible externally, it can feel frustrating at first. You wonder why simple things suddenly feel heavier. You question why your body asks for quiet when your old habits want motion. Yet what feels like limitation is often stewardship being born inside you. Your life is learning not to spend itself where your purpose will never be fed. This is why some of you have felt strangely torn between wanting to keep up with your old rhythm and knowing deep down that rhythm no longer fits. You may still be trying to prove to yourself that you can handle what you used to handle, but your body is already telling the truth. It is saying this is no longer the season to be everywhere, answer everything, and carry what was never assigned to you. There is a holy difference between being available and being aligned. That difference matters more than many people realize. A person can be constantly active and still be completely out of position. Another can appear slower, quieter, even less visible, and yet be standing exactly where heaven needs them. This is the correction taking place inside you now. It is not trying to make you smaller. It is trying to make you accurate. I remember learning this in a painful way. There was a period when I kept pouring myself into environments that looked harmless on the surface, but every time I left them, something in me felt emptied. It was not dramatic. It was subtle, but consistent. My focus would dull. My peace would thin out. Even my prayer felt heavier afterward. For a while I ignored it because I thought maturity meant enduring everything with the same smile and the same openness. But one evening, after feeling completely drained by a room that had once felt normal, I sat in silence long enough for the truth to catch up with me. I was not being asked to endure more. I was being taught to discern more. There are places where your heart can serve, and there are places where your oil will be unnecessarily wasted. Wisdom knows the difference, and your body often learns it before your mind is willing to accept it. That may be why your reactions have changed so suddenly. You can walk into one atmosphere and feel peace settle over you without effort, then walk into another and feel tension rise in your chest for no visible reason. This is not your imagination. It is discernment maturing through lived experience. It is the cooperation of spirit and body under divine instruction. Your internal world is becoming more honest. It is no longer pretending comfort where there is misalignment. It is no longer forcing endurance where there is hidden depletion. And because of that, some relationships may feel different now. Not necessarily because the people are evil, but because your assignment is changing, and not everyone connected to your past can travel comfortably with your future. That truth is hard for tender hearts, especially if you genuinely care about people. But care and access are not the same thing. Love does not require unlimited exposure. Compassion does not mean surrendering your clarity. This is where many chosen ones get confused, because the enemy is clever in how he interprets growth. When boundaries start forming inside you, he calls it isolation. When your energy withdraws from chaos, he calls it detachment. When your body resists toxic familiarity, he calls it weakness. But the spirit knows better. What is happening is not emotional failure, it is sacred filtration. A line is being drawn between what merely occupies your time and what truly supports your calling. Your peace is becoming more selective because your future requires it to be. The life ahead of you cannot be built with the same casual tolerance that defined your last season. Greater clarity demands greater boundaries. Greater stewardship demands greater honesty. And if divine provision is part of what is approaching you, then your vessel must first learn how to protect what it carries. This is why your body has been refusing certain atmospheres, even when your logic tries to explain them away. It is why some conversations leave you with a quiet sadness you cannot fully describe. It is why your spirit now resists things that once seemed ordinary. The change is not random. It is instruction. You are being shown in real time what strengthens your peace and what slowly erodes it. That knowledge is precious. Do not brush it aside simply because it is inconvenient. Some of the most important guidance you will receive in this season will not come through a loud sign. It will come through a repeated signal. A heaviness here, a draining there, a loss of peace in one place, and a return of strength in another. Heaven often teaches through repeated patterns before it confirms through visible breakthrough. There is also something else happening beneath this process. As your energy becomes more protected, your attention is becoming more focused. This is why the things connected to your real purpose may start affecting you differently. You may feel physically tired during the day, then suddenly feel fresh again when you sit with an idea that matters. You may feel dull in an atmosphere of distraction, then come alive in a moment of prayer reflection, writing, planning, or building. Pay attention to that contrast. It is not accidental. It is one of the clearest signs that your strength is being redirected toward assignment. Alignment has a way of restoring energy where striving only drains it. When your life begins moving in harmony with what heaven is emphasizing, strength returns in places where weakness once dominated. That is why this season must be handled carefully. You are not just learning to rest more. You are learning to recognize what deserves your force and what does not. You are learning that not every opportunity is fruitful, not every demand is urgent, and not every connection is meant to remain as intimate as it once was. This may feel uncomfortable, especially if you have spent years measuring your value by how much you can carry for others. But the Lord is shifting that measure. He is teaching you to see that true strength is not found in constant output. It is found in holy precision. Even Daniel, before revelation came, went through a season where his body habits and atmosphere were consecrated. He did not casually walk into his next revelation. He was prepared for it through separation, discipline, and refined awareness. The vessel was trained before the vision was released. And that may be the deeper meaning of what you are living through right now. Your body is being taught how to cooperate with a future that requires more of you, not in noise, but in weight, not in busyness, but in precision, not in endless motion, but in clean alignment. What feels like slowing down is actually the beginning of stronger forward movement. What feels like less may soon reveal itself as protection from waste. And once you understand that your energy is being gathered, not removed, you will begin to see why this season had to feel different before your next level could fully begin. Chosen. 1. What you are feeling right now is not just preparation, it is positioning, and there is a difference that many people miss until much later. Preparation shapes you, but positioning places you where your next door can actually open. And what makes this moment so critical is that positioning often feels like disruption before it feels like direction. You look around and notice that your routine no longer fits the same way. Your habits feel out of sync. Even your sense of time begins to shift, as if something inside you is no longer willing to move at the same pace. This is not confusion. It is alignment, taking control of your rhythm. Heaven is not asking you to chase what is coming. Heaven is moving you into the place where what is coming can recognize you. There are moments in life when everything seems quiet on the outside, but internally something is rearranging with precision. This is one of those moments. You may not see the full picture yet, but pieces are already being moved. The connections that will matter are being prepared. The opportunities that will align are being set in motion. And while all of that is happening, your body is being taught how to stand in that future without collapsing under it. That is why the changes feel so personal. This is not just about what you will receive. It is about who you must become to hold it without losing your clarity, your peace, or your direction. You who have been waiting, you have probably asked yourself why this season feels slower than you expected. You thought breakthrough would feel like acceleration, like doors opening rapidly, like immediate confirmation. But instead, you found yourself being pulled into stillness, into reflection, into moments where nothing seemed to be happening. That is where the misunderstanding often begins, because what looks like delay is often calibration. Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 3 reminds us that the vision awaits its appointed time. It speaks, it does not lie, and though it seems slow, it will surely come. But what that scripture does not always explain in detail is that while the vision is waiting for its time, the vessel is being adjusted to meet it. This is why your internal world has become more active than your external one. You may not be seeing visible results yet, but inside you something is becoming clearer. Your thoughts are sharper. Your awareness is deeper. Your reactions are more intentional. Even the way you interpret situations is changing. Things that once confused you now reveal their meaning quickly. Things that once pulled you in emotionally now lose their hold over you. That is not detachment. That is maturity forming in real time. Your life is being trained to respond with precision instead of reaction. There was a moment in my own journey when this truth became undeniable. I had spent years believing that progress meant constant movement, constant effort, constant visibility. I thought if I slowed down, I would fall behind. But then came a season where everything in me resisted that old way of operating. My body would not cooperate with my old pace. My mind would not stay focused on things that once filled my day. At first, it felt like I was losing momentum, but in reality, I was losing misalignment. What I thought was slowing down was actually being repositioned. When the right opportunity finally appeared, I was able to recognize it immediately because I was no longer distracted by everything that looked similar but carried no purpose. That is what is happening to you now. Your life is being cleared of noise so that when the right door appears, you will not hesitate or second-guess it. Because here is something many people do not understand. Not every open door is meant for you, and not every opportunity carries the weight of your calling. If your discernment is not developed, you can step into something that looks like progress, but slowly pulls you out of alignment. That is why heaven is sharpening your awareness before expanding your path. Your body is learning to say no without needing a full explanation. Your spirit is learning to recognize peace without needing external validation. You may have also noticed that certain patterns are falling away without effort. Habits that once filled your time are losing their hold. Interests that once seemed important now feel distant. Even your desire for certain outcomes may be changing. This is not loss, it is release. When a season shifts, the appetite of your life must shift with it. Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 1 reminds us that there is a time for every purpose under heaven, and when that time changes, everything connected to it must also change. Holding on to what belonged to your previous season will only make this one feel heavier than it needs to be. There is also a deeper layer to this positioning that cannot be ignored. As your alignment strengthens, your visibility in the spiritual realm increases. What you carry begins to matter more. What you respond to begins to shape more. And because of that, the refinement becomes more precise. You are no longer being shaped for survival. You are being shaped for influence. That does not always mean public recognition. It means impact. It means responsibility. It means that what flows through your life will begin to affect more than just you. That is why your foundation is being strengthened now before anything visible expands. You might feel moments where everything seems quiet, almost too quiet, as if nothing is happening. But do not mistake quiet for inactivity. Some of the most important shifts happen in silence. It is in those moments that your life is being aligned with exact timing. The wrong connections are being delayed, the right ones are being positioned. The doors that would distract you are being closed without announcement. The ones that will define your next season are being prepared with intention. And while all of that unfolds, your body is being trained to stand still long enough to recognize the difference. This is where many people miss their moment. They become uncomfortable with stillness and rush back into noise just to feel movement again. But movement without direction leads nowhere. And you are not being prepared for motion. You are being prepared for precision. There is a difference. One consumes energy, the other multiplies it. One keeps you busy, the other moves you forward. So when you feel that quiet pull towards stillness, do not resist it. When your body asks for rest, do not interpret it as weakness. When your spirit withdraws from distraction, do not force yourself back into it just to feel normal again. Normal is not your assignment anymore. Alignment is. And alignment will always feel unfamiliar before it feels natural, because what is coming into your life will require you to recognize it without confusion, to receive it without fear, and to carry it without compromise. And that level of clarity is not built in noise. It is built in moments like these, where everything slows down just enough for truth to become obvious. But there is something else you need to understand, something even deeper than preparation and positioning. Because the moment your life begins to align like this, resistance does not disappear. It shifts. And if you do not recognize how it changes, you may misinterpret the next phase of your journey entirely. Chosen one. What you must recognize now is that resistance does not always look like opposition. Sometimes it looks like confusion, like hesitation, like a subtle pressure trying to pull you back into what no longer fits. This is where many people misread their season. They expect resistance to appear as something obvious, something external, something they can clearly identify and confront. But when your life begins to align at a deeper level, resistance becomes more internal, more refined, more strategic. It does not always shout, it whispers. It does not always block the door. Sometimes it distracts you before you ever reach it. You may have already felt this shift without fully understanding it. There are moments when you feel clear, focused, aligned, and then suddenly something pulls your attention away. A thought that does not belong to your direction. A distraction that seems harmless but slowly drains your focus. A subtle urge to return to what feels familiar, even though you know it no longer serves you. That is not random. That is resistance adjusting to your growth. Because once your awareness increases, the old ways of stopping you no longer work the same way. So instead of direct opposition, the enemy uses redirection. He does not need to destroy your path if he can simply delay your movement. This is why your sensitivity has increased. At the same time, your clarity has grown. One without the other would leave you vulnerable. If you had clarity without sensitivity, you might recognize truth, but still remain in environments that slowly weaken you. If you had sensitivity without clarity, you might feel everything but not understand what to do with it. But what is happening now is both are developing together. You are learning not only to see clearly, but to feel accurately. And that combination creates a level of discernment that cannot easily be manipulated. There was a time when I did not understand this. I thought resistance would always appear as something obvious, something I could easily reject. But the more aligned I became, the more subtle the distractions became. It was no longer about avoiding clearly wrong paths. It was about recognizing what looked right but was not assigned. That distinction is what separates movement from misdirection, because not everything that appears good carries your purpose. Not everything that feels familiar deserves your energy, and not everything that opens is meant for you to walk through. You who have been waiting, this is where your discipline must match your discernment. Because once you can recognize what aligns and what does not, the next step is choosing accordingly, even when it feels uncomfortable. There will be moments when your body signals that something is off, but your mind tries to justify it. There will be moments when your spirit withdraws, but your habits try to pull you back in. And in those moments, the decision you make will determine how quickly you move forward. Alignment is not only something you feel, it is something you protect. This is why the changes in your body are so important. They are not just helping you recognize truth, they are helping you respond to it in real time. A heaviness in your chest is not just a feeling, it is a signal. A sudden loss of energy in a conversation is not just fatigue, it is instruction. A quiet pull towards stillness is not just preference, it is direction. And the more you honor these signals, the stronger they become. The more you ignore them, the easier it becomes to slip back into patterns that no longer serve your future. There is also a deeper layer to this resistance that you must understand. As your life moves closer to what it is meant to carry, the pressure to return to what is comfortable often increases. Familiarity can feel safe, even when it is no longer aligned. You may find yourself thinking about old habits, old environments, even old ways of thinking that once defined you. Not because they are still right for you, but because they are known. And the unknown can feel unsettling, even when it is where your future is waiting. But you must remember this, chosen one. What feels unfamiliar is not always wrong. And what feels comfortable is not always right. Your assignment is not to chase comfort, it is to remain aligned. And alignment will often lead you into spaces that require trust before they provide confirmation. That is why this stage is so important. You are being trained to move by discernment, not by habit. To respond to truth, not to familiarity. You may also notice that your environment is responding to your change. People who once understood you may now question you. Conversations that once flowed easily may now feel strained. Not because something is wrong, but because your frequency has shifted. And not everything can adjust to that shift. This is not rejection, it is separation by alignment. And while it may feel uncomfortable at times, it is necessary, because where you are going cannot be built on the same patterns that defined where you have been. The more you step into this awareness, the more you will see how intentional this season is. Nothing is happening without purpose. Every shift in your energy, every change in your awareness, every moment of discomfort is part of a larger design. You are being prepared not just to receive, but to sustain. Not just to arrive, but to remain. And that requires a level of clarity and discipline that cannot be developed overnight. That is why this stage must be honored, not rushed, not ignored, not misunderstood. Because what you are building now is the foundation for everything that comes next. And once that foundation is set, movement will begin to happen in ways that feel almost effortless. Not because the journey becomes easy, but because you are no longer fighting against your own alignment. But there is something even more profound unfolding beneath all of this. Because as your resistance shifts and your awareness deepens, something begins to activate that goes beyond preparation and beyond positioning. It begins to move into manifestation. And when that moment arrives, everything you have been feeling will finally start to make sense in a way that cannot be denied. Chosen one. There comes a moment when everything that once felt internal begins to echo into your external world, and that moment is closer than you think. What you've been experiencing in your body, in your awareness, in your sensitivity, is not meant to stay hidden forever. It is leading somewhere. It is building toward a point where alignment begins to produce visible evidence. But here is what you must understand. Clearly, manifestation does not begin when something appears. It begins when something inside you stabilizes. And that stabilization is happening right now. You may not see the full outcome yet, but you are already stepping into a different way of moving. You are no longer reacting to everything around you. You are becoming selective. You are no longer driven by pressure. You are being guided by clarity. That shift changes everything, because when clarity leads, your decisions carry weight. Your timing becomes intentional. Your steps begin to align with something greater than your own understanding. And slowly, without needing to force anything, things start to open. This is how divine movement often unfolds. It does not always arrive with noise or immediate recognition. It begins with small confirmations. A conversation that aligns in a way it never did before. An opportunity that feels different from everything you have encountered in the past. A door that opens without the same resistance you once faced. These are not coincidences. They are signals that your internal alignment is beginning to match your external path. I remember the first time I recognized this shift clearly. It was not a dramatic breakthrough. It was quiet, almost easy to overlook. A situation that would have once required effort simply unfolded. A connection that would have taken time appeared naturally. And, more importantly, I knew how to respond without confusion. That was the real change. Not just what appeared, but how I was able to recognize it. Because before alignment, opportunities can pass right in front of you and still be missed. But when your spirit, mind, and body begin to move together, recognition becomes immediate. That is what this season is building in you. The ability to recognize what belongs to you without hesitation. The ability to step into what is opening without fear. The ability to carry what is given without losing your peace. This is not just about receiving, it is about sustaining. And sustaining requires a level of awareness that can only be developed through seasons like the one you're in now. You may have also noticed that your response to opportunity is changing. In the past, you may have felt the need to say yes quickly to secure what appeared before it disappeared. But now there is a pause, a moment of discernment, a quiet evaluation that asks not just, can I do this, but should I do this? That pause is not hesitation. It is wisdom. It is the difference between chasing and choosing. And in this next season of your life, choosing will matter more than chasing ever did. There is also a deeper layer to this manifestation that goes beyond opportunity. It touches provision. Because what is being prepared for you is not random increase. It is purposeful provision. It is the kind of resource that aligns with assignment. It is the kind of increase that supports direction. And when that kind of provision begins to flow, it does not create confusion. It creates clarity. It does not pull you in multiple directions. It strengthens the path you're already on. That is why this preparation has been so specific. Your body has been learning what to carry and what to reject. Your awareness has been sharpening so you can recognize what aligns and what distracts. Your energy has been redirected so you can invest where it matters most. All of this is connected. None of it is separate. It is one continuous process leading to a moment where everything begins to move together. You who feel this shift, you are not waiting for something to begin. It has already begun. The changes you have felt are the first phase. The clarity you are gaining is the second, and what comes next will be the visible result of what has been forming beneath the surface. But you must remain steady, because when manifestation begins, it can be tempting to move too quickly, to overextend, to say yes to everything that appears. That is where many people lose alignment after finding it. This is why your discipline must remain strong, not rigid but aware, not fearful but intentional. You are not meant to return to old patterns just because new doors are opening. You are meant to walk through those doors with the same clarity that brought you to them. Because what you carry into your next season will determine how that season unfolds. You may also begin to notice that your confidence is changing. It is no longer loud or dependent on external validation. It is quieter, more stable, more rooted. It does not need constant confirmation because it is built on alignment rather than appearance. That kind of confidence cannot be easily shaken because it is not based on what is seen. It is based on what is known. And what you are beginning to know is this: your life is not moving randomly. It is being guided with intention. The shifts you have felt were not interruptions. They were instructions. The discomfort you experienced was not a setback. It was adjustment. And the stillness you were pulled into was not delay. It was preparation for movement that will not need to be forced. Because when everything begins to align, movement does not feel heavy. It feels natural. It feels clear. It feels like stepping into something that has already been prepared. And that is exactly where you are heading. But before that moment fully unfolds, there is one final layer that must be understood, because manifestation without protection can lead to loss. And what is coming into your life must be carried with both clarity and guarding. Chosen one. As things begin to open and align, there is a truth you must hold firmly, because not everything that arrives is meant to remain, and not everything that increases is meant to be carried without discernment. This is where protection becomes just as important as preparation. Many people know how to receive, but very few know how to guard what they have been given. And if what is coming into your life carries weight, purpose, and responsibility, then your ability to protect it will determine how long it remains and how far it can grow. You have already been introduced to this protection, but it did not come in the form you expected. It came as sensitivity. It came as a quiet resistance to certain environments. It came as a loss of appetite for conversations that once felt normal. It came as an awareness that something was off, even when everything looked fine on the surface. At first, it felt inconvenient. It disrupted your rhythm. It made you question yourself. But now you are beginning to understand that what you thought was discomfort was actually defense. Your body was not rejecting life. It was filtering it. There is a reason this had to be developed before manifestation fully unfolds. Because when something valuable enters your life, it attracts attention. Not all of that attention is harmful, but not all of it is aligned either. And if you cannot distinguish between the two, you may allow access where there should be boundaries. That is why your discernment has been sharpening. Not just to help you recognize opportunity, but to help you protect it once it arrives. Because protection is not about fear, it is about stewardship. I remember a moment when I had to learn this in a way that changed how I moved forward. Something I had been waiting for finally appeared, something that felt aligned, something that carried potential. At first, I treated it with excitement, sharing it freely, allowing access without much thought. But over time, I noticed something shift. The clarity I had at the beginning started to feel clouded. The energy that once felt strong began to thin out. It was subtle but real. And in that moment, I realized that not everything should be exposed at the same level. Some things must be protected while they are still forming, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. That is what your life is being prepared for now. You are learning that not every part of your journey needs to be visible. Not every decision needs to be explained. Not every door needs to be announced. There is strength in quiet movement. There is power in selective exposure. And there is peace in knowing that what is truly aligned does not need constant validation from others. You may also begin to notice that your circle is changing in a more defined way. It is not just about who you spend time with, but how you engage. You are becoming more intentional. You are no longer giving the same level of access to everyone, not because you have changed your heart, but because you have changed your awareness. You understand now that what you carry requires a certain environment to grow. And not every environment can support that growth. This is where many people feel conflicted. They worry that setting boundaries will make them seem distant, that protecting their energy will appear as withdrawal. But what you must understand is that boundaries are not rejection. They are direction. They are the structure that allows your life to move forward without unnecessary interference. Even in Scripture, we see that seasons of growth are often accompanied by seasons of separation, not because something is wrong, but because something is being refined. You who are stepping into this next level must also understand that protection includes how you manage your own thoughts, because external distractions are not the only thing that can pull you out of alignment. Internal doubt can do the same. As things begin to unfold, there may be moments where you question whether you are ready, whether you can sustain what is coming, whether you can handle the responsibility. That is another form of resistance, but it is one that works from within, and if you do not recognize it, it can slow your movement just as much as any external distraction. This is why your confidence has been shifting. It is not meant to be loud or reactive. It is meant to be steady. It is meant to be rooted in understanding rather than emotion. Because when your confidence is built on alignment, it does not waver based on circumstances. It remains consistent, even when things are still unfolding. That is the kind of stability that allows you to move forward without constantly second-guessing yourself. There is also something else happening that you may not have fully noticed yet. As your protection strengthens, your clarity becomes more consistent. You are no longer moving between confusion and understanding as often. The direction that once felt uncertain is becoming more defined. Decisions that once required long consideration are becoming more immediate. That is not because life is becoming simpler. It is because your alignment is becoming stronger. And with that strength comes responsibility. Because the clearer your path becomes, the more important it is to stay aligned with it. It becomes easier to recognize what belongs and what does not, but it also becomes easier to drift if you ignore that awareness. That is why this stage is so important. It is not just about receiving what is coming, it is about maintaining the alignment that allows it to remain. You are being trusted with something that requires both openness and guarding. You must be open enough to receive, but guarded enough to sustain. You must be aware enough to recognize, but disciplined enough to protect. That balance is what defines this season, and it is what will determine how your next chapter unfolds. Because what is coming into your life is not meant to pass through you quickly. It is meant to take root. It is meant to grow. It is meant to expand in a way that reflects not just provision, but purpose. And for that to happen, everything you have been learning, everything you have been feeling, everything that has been shifting inside you must come together. And as that happens, you will begin to see that what once felt like uncertainty was actually precision in motion. What once felt like discomfort was actually protection in action. And what once felt like waiting was actually the final stage of becoming ready for something that will no longer require you to question whether it belongs in your life. Chosen one. When everything begins to settle into alignment like this, there comes a moment where you can finally see what this entire season was preparing you for. Not all at once, not in a sudden, overwhelming reveal, but in a quiet realization that your life is no longer moving the way it used to. The confusion that once surrounded your steps has been replaced with clarity. The pressure that once pushed you in every direction has been replaced with intention, and the exhaustion that once felt heavy now begins to make sense. It was never meant to stop you. It was meant to slow you down long enough for alignment to take hold. You may find yourself looking back at recent days, even recent weeks, and noticing how different everything feels. The same environments no longer affect you the same way. The same conversations no longer hold your attention the same way. Even the way you respond to challenges has changed. Where you once reacted quickly, you now pause. Where you once felt overwhelmed, you now observe. Where you once felt uncertain, you now recognize direction more easily. This is not something you forced. It is something that has formed inside you through the process you have just walked through. And this is where the deeper understanding begins to settle in. What you experienced was not disruption. It was alignment in progress. What felt like distance was not loss. It was separation with purpose. What felt like silence was not absence. It was preparation taking place without distraction. All of it was intentional. All of it was necessary. Because the version of you that is stepping forward now is not the same version that began this process. There is a quiet strength that has formed in you, one that does not need to prove itself. It does not need to explain itself. It simply knows. It knows what feels right. It knows what no longer fits. It knows when to move and when to remain still. That kind of strength is not built through constant motion. It is built through alignment, through refinement, through learning to trust what is happening inside you, even before you see it fully outside you. You who have felt out of rhythm with the world around you, this is why. You were not meant to move at the same pace anymore. You were being guided into a different rhythm, one that is connected to purpose rather than pressure. And now that rhythm is becoming clearer. It is no longer something you're trying to understand. It is something you're beginning to live. You may also begin to notice that opportunities, ideas, and connections start appearing in ways that feel natural, not forced. Things that once required effort now unfold with ease, not because the path is without challenge, but because you are no longer misaligned with it. When alignment is present, movement feels different. It feels direct. It feels intentional. It feels like stepping into something that was already prepared before you arrived. This is the moment where preparation turns into movement, not rushed movement, not reactive movement, but guided movement. The kind that does not drain you but strengthens you as you walk. The kind that does not confuse you but confirms you as you move forward. And as this begins to unfold, you will realize that everything you went through was leading to this point. You may not have understood it while it was happening. You may have questioned it, resisted it, even doubted yourself at times. But now you can see how each part connected, how the sensitivity revealed truth, how the stillness created clarity, how the separation protected your direction, how the recalibration prepared your capacity. None of it was wasted, none of it was random, and this is where your trust deepens. Not just trust in what is coming, but trust in how it is unfolding. You begin to understand that your life is not being directed by chance. It is being guided with precision. The same way your body responded before your mind understood your path has been moving before you could fully see it. And now you are stepping into the awareness of that movement. There is also a peace that begins to settle in this stage. Not the kind of peace that comes from everything being perfect, but the kind that comes from knowing you are in the right place. Even if everything is not fully revealed, yet you no longer feel lost. You no longer feel the need to force direction. You can move forward with confidence, not because you have all the answers, but because you recognize the alignment. This is what it means to step into the next season. Not with noise, not with urgency, but with clarity. Not with pressure, but with purpose. Not with fear, but with understanding. And as you continue forward, you will begin to see how what once felt unfamiliar now feels natural. What once felt uncertain now feels clear. What once felt distant now begins to appear within reach. So take a moment and recognize where you are. You are not at the beginning of confusion. You are at the end of it. You are not in the middle of disruption. You are at the point where everything begins to come together. The shifts you felt were the first signs. The clarity you now carry is the confirmation. And as you move forward from here, carry this with you. You are not being undone. You have been prepared. Everything that has shifted inside you has brought you into alignment with what is already unfolding around you. And from this point on, your steps will no longer feel uncertain. They will feel guided. On Chosen One, what has been unfolding within you is sacred, and it has not been wasted. Every shift in your body, every moment of stillness, every quiet discomfort has been part of a divine alignment that is already moving your life into position. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are standing in a kairos moment, a divinely appointed time where what was formed in silence is now preparing to appear in your reality. Anointed One, let your spirit rest in this truth. The same God who initiated this transformation is faithful to complete it. What once felt unfamiliar is becoming your new normal. What once felt uncertain is settling into clarity. You are being strengthened to carry what is already on its way to you, not just for your benefit, but for purpose, for impact, for divine stewardship. Walk forward with peace, not pressure. Move with awareness, not fear. Remain grateful for every step, even the ones you did not understand at the time, because now you can see something greater has already been set in motion. If this word has settled in your spirit, write Amen or 777 in the comments as a quiet declaration that you receive what heaven is doing in your life. And if these messages continue to meet you at the right moment, stay connected so you do not miss what is being released for your journey. Chosen One, rest tonight knowing this. You are not being undone. You are being positioned for what heaven has already prepared.